Welcome all. It's so lovely to see you and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be joining from. But we might get started here on our webinar today about the AME Roadshow. So my name's Rebecca Mahalik. I have the privilege of serving as the president of AME currently nationally. Our mission here at AME, as many of you already know, is to bring together professionals and organisations to share, learn and grow together in the pursuit of operational excellence, of leadership development, and of course, transformational thinking for ourselves and the organisations that we work in. One of our favourite ways, actually, to connect and learn together is through our annual roadshows. And every year we invite a thought leader from around the world on the road with us, bringing the opportunity for learning directly to our members in their own cities, which is really exciting. And so this year, we're very excited to be hosting Mark Graban on a roadshow throughout Australia and New Zealand. And so the webinar will begin today with a short presentation about the roadshow. So Mark will take us through what he's planning to cover, and then we'll move into questions and answers with Mark. So we encourage you to add questions to the Q&A feature here in Zoom. We will monitor that and make sure we get through as many of those questions as we can today. So in a few weeks' time, we're going to be welcoming Mark when he arrives into Australia. Now, as many of you already know, Mark is a globally recognised expert in lean thinking and operational excellence. He has long-running podcasts and he's an esteemed author of several books, the latest, which is The Mistakes That Make Us, which has actually just been awarded the Shingo Prize. So I want to start off, Mark, by congratulating you on such an awesome achievement there.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah.
So we are lucky enough to hear about a little bit more about what you're going to be covering at the roadshow. So I might hand to you, Mark, to start to take us through that.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm really excited by the invitation from AME Australia to come to both Australia and New Zealand. If there are questions that we can't get to today, you can always reach out to Rebecca or Laura, or you can email me, mark@markgraban.com. And I know Laura is going to be adding registration links into the chat, but if you go to markgraban.com/AME25, that will also forward you to the registration page. The cities we did want to show here, and Rebecca, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all, or if you want me to walk through it from Geelong to Auckland and points in between.
Well, that's really like you got your accent down right there, Mark, with Geelong. It's not always an easy one to, yeah, you're doing well. So we're really excited to start the roadshow this year in Geelong, which is the first time we've included this stop on our roadshow. So Geelong's a big new first starting point, which we'll launch. We'll head to Melbourne and then to Adelaide, Brisbane, and we'll finish up the Australian leg in Sydney before we head over the pond there to Auckland. And so again, Auckland is another first for our roadshows, and we're really excited to connect with our New Zealand friends and community over there. So that's the flow of our trip this year.
Yeah. So excited and looking forward to doing the workshop in different cities. And the overall theme for the workshop is something that we've titled Improving the Way We Improve. I'm reaching a point now where June is going to mark 30 years since I started in the auto industry in my first job out of college. And I would hate to think that I was doing the same thing every year, 30 years over. I'm fortunate to have learned things along the way. And I know people in this audience will appreciate the idea of continuously improving the way we help others with continuous improvement. So I hope people who share that mindset will come to the event and learn some of the things that I'm passing along, and it'll be opportunities to learn from everybody in the room based on their experiences. So I do plan on going into a little bit of detail about what is in the morning and the afternoon of these sessions. But first, as it says on the registration website, I think maybe we'll cover a little bit just around the question of, who should attend. I think for one, let me start with the bottom bullet point that this really is, I think, content that's beneficial to leaders from all industries. As I mentioned, I started my career in manufacturing. I've spent a lot of most of my time working the last 20 years in healthcare. I've worked with two different software companies along the way, and I think the things I'll be sharing in the workshops here are very universal practices and principles about leadership and improvement and data-driven decision making. So I want to make that pitch that this is not a quote unquote healthcare workshop. There's a lot here that I've taught and used in healthcare, but I feel confident that what I'm facilitating will be useful to people from a wide range of industries. I think when we go into the top of the list here, this is not designed exclusively for executives and senior leaders, but when we're talking about embedding and strengthening a culture of learning, a culture of data-driven decision making, I think when executives and senior leaders are leading this way from the top, leading by example, reinforcing these mindsets and methods through the organization, it's most powerful. So I would certainly invite executives and C-suite leaders, company presidents to come and attend. This is not strictly, if you will, a lean tools workshop, the things that you might delegate to the frontline staff. There's a lot around culture and leadership that I think will be really impactful for senior leaders. That said, managers, supervisors, those in the middle, I think there's a lot to offer. People who are looking for practical approaches to leading their teams more effectively, managing performance metrics. I think there's a lot to offer for continuous improvement professionals. I would put myself in that category. If you're looking for new methods that you can teach the organizations you work with, whether that's as an internal continuous improvement or lean facilitator, as an outside consultant. These are methods that I've taught and used that have been really beneficial to my clients. Data analysts, I think in particular, the afternoon session would be really of interest there if people are frustrated by kind of the culture around data-driven decision making, and the morning session might provide some skills around building a sense of psychological safety within a team or with the leaders you're working with. So we think there's a little bit for everybody from different roles and of course different industries. Why attend? I think again under this banner of improving the way we improve, there's opportunity to enhance leadership skills, practical tools. This is definitely not a theory workshop. There are some tools and methods, but again, I think more importantly, the mindsets that help us create an environment where people feel safe to speak up, safe to report mistakes. That leads to higher engagement and more innovation. I think the things we'll be covering will help both individual decision making and organizational decision making. Learning to focus on signals in our data and our performance measures, helping others feel safe to point out gaps in our performance, feeling safe to work on improvements. That's, I think, the benefit around driving continuous improvement, enhancing our workplace culture. Instead of telling people they should speak up or that they should trust us, leading in ways that help people feel safe to speak up and to participate and to use data for improvement instead of punishment. And then, I think events like these are always great networking opportunities, connecting with others within AME and people who are maybe new to the AME fold. These are interactive workshops with opportunities for everybody to share their insights and experiences and best practices. So I'm thinking about, the morning and the afternoon. Let me just give a bit of an overview of what we want to call, lean foundations and secret sauces, if you will. I hope that's slang or an expression that translates well enough across cultures. I see Rebecca and Laura smiling that, okay, we know what we mean by secret sauce, perhaps. In the morning, the title for that session is Psychological Safety as a Foundation for Continuous Improvement. This is something I would put in the category of things I've learned in the last 5 to 10 years that I wish I had really understood 20, 25, 30 years ago. So we'll take a pretty deep dive in the morning around what psychological safety is. So understanding not just the terminology and the concepts around what psychological safety is and what it's not. In a nutshell, again, it's this question of how safe do you feel? How safe do others feel speaking up about continuous improvement, problems, ideas, mistakes? Um, but we'll dive into a deeper model called the 4 stages of psychological safety, which I think a very helpful framework to better understand how teams progress through these stages of psychological safety. It's definitely not when we ask about psychological safety. I think similar to workplace physical safety, it's not so simple as to say safe or unsafe. It's a question of how safe, and we'll explore that. But then I think the real practical matters beyond understanding the baseline level that our employees and colleagues might feel in terms of psychological safety. There are some very key leader behaviors, some very practical steps that we can take to cultivate psychological safety. And we'll talk through all of that, as well as the connections to continuous improvement practices when it comes to lean. There are a lot of really deep connections at Toyota, where psychological safety, I think really is one of the required conditions for continuous improvement or lean or operational excellence to take root. So we'll be focusing again on what can we do as leaders and colleagues to help people feel safe or safer speaking up. Then in the afternoon, and so actually I'll say one other thing, the material from the morning is covered, and we'll be expanding upon some of the introduction in my book, The Mistakes That Make Us. The afternoon session is based more on my prior book before that, called Measures of Success: React Less, Lead Better, Improve More. So some of the key takeaways: we're going to learn how to create and interpret what are called process behavior charts. For those of you familiar with statistical process control or control charts, process behavior charts are a different name for that. There is a specific type of control chart or process behavior chart that I'll be teaching and we'll be using. We'll learn as leaders or improvement professionals, how do we distinguish between signal and noise in our performance metrics? So as the subtitle of my book suggests, we can react less, and we can actually then, as we lead better, improve more. We'll learn how to, I think, in a statistically meaningful way, better evaluate our projects and improvement efforts over time. We'll understand some of the pitfalls of some methods that are often taught in lean practice, red-green scorecards and linear trend lines. Try to introduce those sessions and some of my thoughts that might be contrary, but I think a better alternative to some of those approaches. And again, we'll be looking to connect these methods to your lean management system. So again, I think the common thread between part 1 and part 2 is improving the way we improve, creating a foundation where people feel safe speaking up, and using that then as a way to feel safe evaluating data in a candid way, because we're not fearing being punished for that. So I think the morning and the afternoon, the final thing I'll share before turning it back over to Rebecca and doing some Q&A, is that this is definitely not a day of didactic lecture. This is not a day of sitting passively and just listening. In the morning, in both the morning and the afternoon, there will be many active group discussions. In the morning, especially, we'll utilize live polling to help understand some of the backgrounds and perspectives of people there in the room. And then on the afternoon, and basically right after lunch, which I think is a great way to be even more up and about the room and physically active and not getting sleepy after lunch, will be my version of I think famed red bead experiment, or red bead game, is made famous by W. Edwards Deming, author of books including Out of the Crisis, a personal and professional hero of mine. So, to show you some pictures of different groups participating in the red bead game, and if you've read about it, perhaps I think there's no substitute for hands-on participation. Where there are very active roles for 10 people in the session to participate in our quote unquote bead factory. It may seem like a silly exercise, but I think it's meaningful, it's impactful to go through that exercise. Here are some photos from a healthcare conference last week, and we didn't ask people to pose for pictures with the smiles. I mean, I think there's a lot of legitimate fun in the room around the serious topic of performance measures and better understanding cause and effect relationships between our attempts to improve a system and the numbers and the measures and the metrics. So I'm going to go out on the limb and promise you a fun, engaging session. I think we learn best when we're having fun. And the takeaways from the red bead game and all the discussion and chance to learn about and practice process behavior charts is something practical that you can take back to your workplace. So that's my pitch. I'm excited to bring these topics and workshops to you. But again, I'll put my contact information up here for a minute, and then as we're going through Q&A, I'll put the dates for the different cities back up on screen as well.
Terrific. Thank you, Mark. That's fantastic. And we do have a few questions that have rolled in. So we might start off with the first one was raised by Callum. He just mentioned that he's working in a high-tech company with more technical people involved. And some of them are a little stuck in the old ways of doing things. It's become their comfort zone. He's curious about how he can impress on them about the fact that there's always a better way of doing things if they're happy to give it a go. So he's curious about how he can get them on board in the CI journey. So how might we be able to tackle that at the workshop?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I'll say that I have taught and utilized the methods from both the morning session and the afternoon session at a tech company called Kinexus that I've been involved with for over a decade. I think one starting point for continuous improvement, and this is the reason I'm doing the morning session in the morning, is, we could dig into the reasons people resist change. In some settings, it's just a matter of people not feeling safe to point out problems or opportunities for improvement, or they might not feel safe to question or challenge new things that we're trying to introduce. So, I think there are connections to the idea of helping people work through change. We have to be careful to, I think, not just invite their participation, but reward their participation, whether they've quote unquote gotten on board quickly or whether they're asking questions or challenging things. But these are the types of things we can certainly talk through in the workshop, or we can talk about during breaks, or the afternoon has a little bit more wide open networking time, where we can talk about these things. But I think the connections for these methods, we have studied and surveyed our team around psychological safety at Kinexus. We've taught leaders the proven behaviors that help boost psychological safety, and we use these process behavior chart methods for the different business metrics that our CEO and our other co-founder and other leaders look at. So I hope that addresses the question well enough for now, anyway.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Another question's come from Paul. Just a small question here about Lean or Lean Six Sigma is the question. So not sure if you want to address a little bit of that. It's a big topic.
It is, and I mean, I'll share. I mean, I started in the auto industry, 1995. It was really Toyota Production System, which I would say Lean is meant to be a generic descriptor of TPS. Whether it plays out that way, that's a different workshop, maybe for a different day or another conversation. But I've had Six Sigma training, but I would say more importantly, I've had statistical methods training going back to college, and the Deming methodology, and Don Wheeler, the statistician, who I've learned so much from. I mean, I would make the case. I think we would all agree control charts are part of Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma. There are many lean organizations that use control charts as well without using the full-blown Six Sigma methodology. So I think in terms of the workshop, it's an agnostic approach. I think the morning session and the afternoon session could be applied very well, and an organization would say they're implementing or practicing lean, or an organization that's doing Lean Six Sigma. So I mean, all are welcome. I don't, we're not there in the workshop to argue one or the other. So I think there's something for everybody, and it's funny. I've taught, especially the process behavior chart methods, to a mixed room of people who have never done a control chart at all. And then at the other end of the bell curve, if it's actually a bell curve, are, a Six Sigma master black belt in the room. And, I think, people who are new to this, of course, are going to learn something they can go and apply. I've had a couple of Six Sigma master black belts, come up and say that, they went through a journey that at first they thought, well, this is different than I was taught in Six Sigma, and therefore it was a little challenging. Process behavior charts, the XMR chart that I'll be using and teaching, arguably is really the one chart that we need to use. And some of the Six Sigma master black belts have actually, as they worked through it and their comfort level, came up during the session, they thanked me that this simplifies things, not in a bad way, like not in an oversimplified way, but instead of having to teach people the six different types of control charts, if that's indeed how many there are, and leaders don't have the patience for understanding all those different types of charts, having one Swiss Army knife type of control chart, can be, I think, a helpful simplification that's arguably more valid than some of the other charts with real world data. So again, we can cover that a little bit in the workshop. We can take deeper dives during the breaks or lunch or end of the day for those who are coming at this from a background of deep Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma experience. Again, all are welcome, and I hope people bring some of their experience with these methods that they can share with people in the workshops too.
Thanks, Mark. There are a couple more questions, which we might be able to get through before we finish up in about 6 minutes.
I'll try to give shorter answers.
No, they should be easy to answer. But one was just a more practical question, like, will there be any handout materials or takeaways for people that they can reference after the workshop?
Yes. So the approach I like is to create handouts that provide a little bit of guidance, for taking notes. I generally share a PDF of the slides and the material that I use. I prefer to do that electronically, but yeah, we'll have some handouts, and hopefully that helps structure people's note taking a little bit.
Awesome, thank you. What would you say about people, and how many people come from organisations? So should people attend on their own, or is there any benefit for more than one to come from a workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think of times when I've been the only one from an organization to go to a workshop. I'm all for continuous learning and continuous um, improvement of my approaches to things. So I would certainly welcome an individual. I mean, I think the ideal state in a lot of cases would be, a business leader bringing some of their other leaders along with them, so that yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to the shared experience of being in the workshop together. And, I think in particular, the shared experience of the red bead experiment. Um, so I think it's great for a team, bring leaders from different levels of the organization. The role of senior leaders when it comes to some of the cultural elements of, again, this workshop doesn't cover just methods. There are a lot of mindsets that connect to culture. And, I think senior leaders are, by nature of their role, most influential when it comes to culture.
Excellent. Thank you. And we just have one question that's just dropped in from Ross. And he asks, will you cover the need for all leaders to become teachers of problem solving, visual workplace, and prevention at the source, recognizing that to be effective at being a workplace teacher, they should have no more than 7 direct reports, which is a Toyota learning. Most
Yeah.
Australian leaders don't have being a teacher as part of their role.
Yeah, and we'll discuss that because I think the ideal state that we've been able to explore and do really well with at KaiNexus is the CEO and the senior team deeply understanding psychological safety, having a passion for wanting everybody to feel safe to speak up, and then leading by example with the behaviors that the science of this show are incredibly beneficial. For the afternoon connected topics, whether it's the CEO at KaiNexus or I'll share some examples and quotes from a health system CEO here in the U.S. who I think it's a rare and example of as CEO, he deeply understands the mindsets around process behavior charts, and he no longer asks people to overreact or explain every up and down in the metrics. He understands the difference, as we'll learn in the workshop, between signal and noise. And when the system has really changed in a statistically meaningful way, because that's a time to react and spend less time reacting to every up and down, every individual red. I think those are, I think some of the key takeaways. And so then I think related to that, it reinforces, if we can lead by example when it comes to cultivating psychological safety, if we can lead by example and teach the mindsets about process behavior charts, I mean, I think that sets leaders up to teach other things. I mean, the reason I've chosen these topics for the workshops and the reason I've chosen these topics to write about is that I think they are so foundational that if we don't have psychological safety in place, a better form of data-driven decision making in place, I don't know if it's worth teaching all the other methods and practices, or they're less likely to succeed without the things we'll be teaching in the workshop. So that's where I'm taking that leap to say foundations and secret sauces. I mean, this is really secret, but I think, things I'm passionate about sharing with people, because I think a lot of people haven't been taught these different methods either through their formal education or in their workplaces or even through their lean experience. So I hope that, again, the final thing, I hope this serves as a good foundation for people who are relatively new Tulane. And for those who've been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, hopefully there's something where you can either learn something new, for your methods, or sharpen the saw, if you will, or maybe gain some encouragement that these methods are worth giving another try if your organization had tried them before and didn't get the results you expected. We can talk about things like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mark. And we've just hit our time, so I will wind things up now. If there are any additional questions, please send them through to us. Via email is fine, and we will make sure we get back to you with those answers to help you in your decision making around the roadshow. So we do encourage you to register. Please bring along a team to learn together and embed the learnings together back in your organisation. In order to encourage that, Laura's added the link, I think, to the chat there to register. And look, there is a group discount of 3 or more registrations attracts a 10%. So we do want to encourage groups to come and learn together and embed the learnings together. We do have limited tickets at each city. We are looking to create an exclusive experience. And as Mark was talking about, if you do have really specific questions and things applicable to your workplace, there will be opportunity, whether it's during the workshop or in the breaks and around the networking time, to be able to address those. So we wanted to create that really exclusive experience for you with Mark. So with that being said, we really look forward to seeing you at the roadshow in the city that you're in. So thank you very much for coming along, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rebecca.